on this week's show. Is game about to disappear from the UK high street for good? Could GTA 6 really launch without a physical copy? And did one of Jeff Keighley's most hyped games completely miss the mark? We're breaking down Highguard's brutal reviews, the rumours around PlayStation's next state of play, and why Ubisoft's Watch Dogs series might already be finished, even with a movie on the way. Big stories, big rumours, and some uncomfortable truths for the gaming industry. Stick around, you won't want to miss this. Hello and welcome. It's been another busy week in the gaming news, but first let's talk about Ubisoft and the Watch Dogs franchise and why one of the publisher's once big open world IPs might be on life support. Right now there's multiple industry insiders have suggested that Watch Dogs, the series Ubisoft hoped would be its answer to big urban sandbox games, is effectively dead in the water. According to reports, internal development on new Watch Dogs titles has stalled, and after Watch Dogs Legion's performance, Ubisoft appears to have shelved the franchise entirely. This rumour comes at a time when Ubisoft as a whole is going through massive upheaval. In the past week, the company announced the cancellation of 6 games, delays on others, and thousands of layoffs as part of a major restructure. Studios are being reorganised into creative houses, staff reductions are being proposed, and the focus is narrowing towards its biggest revenue drivers. Now, looking back at the Watch Dogs franchise itself, it's had highs and lows. The original Watch Dogs back in 2014 had an interesting premise, but didn't quite stick the landing. Its sequel, Watch Dogs 2, is still fondly remembered by many players as a genuine improvement. It was more vibrant, more engaging, and had stronger characters. Then came Watch Dogs Legion in 2020, which divided fans. Its bold play-as-anyone mechanic was cool in theory, but critics, including ourselves, and players felt it lacked the narrative pull and polish of the earlier games. Now, interestingly, even if the games are on ice, the Watch Dogs universe isn't disappearing just yet. A live-action Watch Dogs movie, which was announced a while ago, is still in production. Filming wrapped and is expected to release around 2026, sometime later this year. It'll star upcoming actors like Sophie Wilde and Tom Blythe, and tells a new story set in the same Hackett-infused world. So while Ubisoft cuts back and refocuses, fans of Watch Dogs are left wondering, did a once promising franchise just fade away, or is it just on pause? Only time and Ubisoft's next moves will tell. Now, it's a real shame that what was a really good series initially, due to just poor decisions and the way we're expected to move the next game forward based on the previous one. I mean, you had Watch Dogs 1, that had its own issues, the E3 catastrophe demo, as some people refer to, the fact that, it had this major downgrade. Then you've got Watch Dogs 2, which it's kind of a rose between two thorns, really, because it was great compared to the other two. I mean, whilst Watch Dogs 1 had its really good story, that revenge story, 2 focused more on just the hacker life in general. And then we had Legion, and whilst the concept was okay in a game like GTA 5, where you still had that real big backstory of each character, even though you were still switching from Trevor to Michael, you could still follow the story. Whereas Legion, it was like you could play as anyone, but they didn't really have a backstory, and there were some really strange characters. I mean, you've got like an 80-year-old woman who can, hack supercomputers. I mean, you and I have both played these games. I mean, out of the 3, which one's your favourite?
I liked the first one more so for the story. I didn't mind the gameplay as such, um, but number two was an improvement on the gameplay. Although I feel like the story, for me at least, um, the difference is obviously with one is obviously you're following this one hacker, and his is a more of like a revenge redemption type story, whereas in number two you're in a group of hackers that basically don't like these big corporations trying to screw the little man. And yeah, it's not a bad story, but you can tell it just felt like a different tone altogether. Like number one was more serious and gritty, and that's what I kind of liked about it. But I don't mind how it was in number two, and it was more vibrant and fun, and just that's just how it was. And it's not a bad thing, but I just feel like it kind of was a little step back, but it was still worth playing, and it was still good. Legion, well, I mean, it has a story to it where, well, you're playing as anyone, but it's sort of following the same narrative, but it just didn't make sense to me. Like you play as literally anyone in London as the characters. I mean, apart from the major characters at least. But yeah, I do agree that playing as like an 80-year-old woman infiltrating a Scotland Yard in hacking in Scotland Yard, that doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, you could almost feel like they didn't know. So they had this great idea with Watch Dogs 1. They didn't know where to take it with Watch Dogs 2, but they kind of made it work. And then Watch Dogs 3, it's like we just ran out of ideas, but we still want a third title in the series.
And the thing is as well, I mean, with Legion, I mean, the thing that made it better for me was I think it was called the Bloodlines DLC, which brought back Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs 1 and Wrench from Watch Dogs 2. But obviously, I was more so into playing Aiden again because he's the guy from the first game, and we know how his story more or less went in the first game, and obviously I could play the main story of the game as him as well, so I replayed it and played it as him because it just felt more, to me at least, it felt like it made more sense to play it as him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the gameplay, yeah, it was still good, but I feel like it was a slight drawback from two. Other than that, it's still I still enjoy playing it, but obviously I don't agree with what they did. I mean, I think the players anyone should have just been like a multiplayer mode or something.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It felt like you were playing a multiplayer, but in a single player. And yeah, I mean, it did have multiplayer, but it just. You've got this major story involving spies and conspiracies and all this stuff, and you can kind of understand a couple of the characters having the skill set they did, but an example would be you can go to Buckingham Palace and you can recruit one of the Beefeaters, the Queen's Guard or the King's Guard, Queen in the game obviously, and King in real life. And then you can basically go and do a little quest for them to get them on your side, and then you can play as them, and then go and basically hack the government, and it just doesn't seem believable. I mean, yes, it's a video game set in a slight few years ahead of actual real time. When you look at Watch Dogs 1, it was the same character all the way through. You could build up the backstory. By the time you was finished with the game, you was emotionally invested in the character's story because it was just one character's story. 2 did something similar. I mean, it wasn't as detailed as Watch Dogs 1 story, and like I say, it was more about sticking it to the corporations, these big businesses. And then Legion was again basically Watch Dogs 2, but with playing as anyone. You almost kind of get a sense that they've seen what GTA 5 did. They saw this, multiple players, and instead of just like doing maybe one or two, where you've helping a friend out, and then you play as that friend, and then you go back. They just said, we can do that and just play as anyone. And at the same time, you kind of feel like they just couldn't really be bothered to fully flesh out an actual story. It was just mission. There wasn't really any innovation over the previous iterations. Whilst the graphical side of it was really impressive. They introduced a lot of new technology such as ray tracing that wasn't really present on the consoles at that time. It was more sort of a new PC thing. I mean, obviously it's mainstream nowadays. There's a lot of titles with path tracing and ray tracing and all of that. And so yeah, visually it was good. It had a nice setting. I mean, it was set in London. Watch Dogs 2 was San Francisco, and Watch Dogs 1, interestingly, was Chicago, which there's very few, if at all any, games set in Chicago. You kind of think, well, they could have gone somewhere completely different. Instead of Chicago, they could have gone to New York or any number of locations that have been used dozens of times in other games. But yeah, it was really good concept with 1. 2 was better, but Legion just, where did they go wrong?
The thing is, where you mention about, obviously, other places that they could have gone to. Now, I've not read the book. I can't exactly remember the name of the title of it, but I know they brought out a Watch Dogs, uh, book with Aiden Pearce in it, and he was in Washington DC, and I thought, why couldn't they have made that into a game? That would have been a great setting in area to continue Aiden's story, especially in the capital of the United States.
Yeah.
I think that would have been great.
No, it really was a good series. I mean, let's hope and pray that we do get a more toned down sequel, more similar to Aiden's story in Watch Dogs 1. But it might not be a game, but we of course have a potential film in the works. Production is ongoing. I mean, the filming's been done, so they're obviously not going to throw away all the money that they've spent on that. We've got a few major stars in there. Let's hope, though, it doesn't have that curse of game director film sort of issues that we've seen with similar type of productions. It's supposed to be a brand new story as well, so that should be great. Ubisoft hopefully have learned from their mistakes with their previous ventures from game to film. It's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye out on. I imagine you'll probably want to watch it as well, Oggy.
Yeah. I wasn't it back at E3 when E3 was E3 that they announced it?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, obviously, I'm all for it, and obviously, as long as it's done right, then yeah, I mean, like look at for examples like the Fallout series. That seems to be doing well, even though it's not a movie, but it's very, very well done for a series, and it seems to be sticking well to its guns, and sticking to the law of the games from what I currently see out of it. And I hope it's the same for this Watch Dogs movie. Whenever they decide to show it or bring it out, but yeah, I also hope it's in a, well, like I say, it's in a decent setting that's not really been explored.
Yeah, Watch Dogs is currently in the kennels waiting for a new owner, as it were. So obviously this comes right on the back of all of these layoffs and cancellations. Now, when I was younger, I would get all of my games from a retail place, and in the UK we had quite a few actually. We had GameStop, GameStation, and we had Game. Now, over the last 10, 15, 20 years or so, a lot of these retail places have closed up or been merged into another, such as GameStation was merged into Game, and it's not going very well, shall we say. Game, quite a large, well, it used to be a large retailer in the UK. basically over the last couple of weeks, there's been a few reports suggesting that Game has filed what's called a notice of intention to appoint administrators. In simple terms, that just basically means that the company is in serious financial trouble and is buying itself some time to figure out what happens next. Now, Game, as I mentioned, has been struggling for years. They first collapsed back in 2012, shutting hundreds of stores. Since then, they've been bought and sold multiple times, and in 2019, they were taken over by Fraser's Group, the same company behind Sports Direct, which again is a sports brand clothing shop in the UK. Since then, we've seen big changes. Standalone game stores have disappeared, replaced by smaller concessions inside of the Sports Direct shops themselves. They've stopped selling pre-owned games, they've cut back on reward schemes, and even dropped in-store pre-orders in many places. Basically, everything that made Game feel like Game has slowly been stripped away. Recently, around 40 stores have closed, some shops have been running clearance sales, and hundreds of jobs are now at risk. So why is this happening? Well, basically, physical game retail is under massive pressure. Most people buy digitally now. Big online retails, undercut prices, and high street costs in the UK are still brutal. All of that makes it incredibly hard for a specialist retailer to survive. So if Game does officially enter administration, it doesn't automatically mean the end. It could be restructured, sold, or downsized further, but it does mean uncertainty for staff and for customers and for what's left of gaming on the high street. So again, we've seen there that they've made the shop smaller, they've done various things. I just don't see them really surviving at this point, because what else can they do? They stop selling games. I remember, going into the game and game station as a kid, and what made it really good was just seeing that big store with all the aisles and all the games and on all the different platforms are all separated and it all looks so good, and you just go up and you browse. And the thing is, now when you go into a game shop, it's just this tiny little square in the corner of a sports shop, and there's hardly anything there. They more sell like the digital gift cards for various platforms, Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, so forth. They don't even do trade games now. They stopped doing that. I mean, that is one of the biggest things that gamers do, is they'll, well, unless you're collecting, of course, but you'll just play your game, right? Yeah, well, I'm done with that, great, go trade it in, and put that money towards a new game. Or in this case, say you bought Watch Dogs 1, you'd then trade that in and go and buy Watch Dogs 2 or Legion. But again, we talked about this last week about the decline in physical and the increase in digitalization of media, especially games. You've got all these digital marketplaces now: Amazon, Xbox stores, PlayStation stores, even eBay. You could literally, I mean, one of the best places really is online to get a good price rather than in store. And it just, again, you're losing these shops where you can go and get these games for cheaper, pre-owned, which on older discs, the PS2 and what, you can't, you're scratching and stuff, but on the newer discs, it's absolutely fine. You're basically getting the brand new game if you get a pre-owned one. I just feel like that we're losing what makes buying and selling games a special. I mean, look at what happened with Ubisoft and The Crew. 1 minute the game was in people's libraries and then it was gone. You can't take away the physical media, at least they're trying to, but now I don't know about your experience, but I remember you telling me about you went in one day and you saw this sort of like a room where you could pay for an hour and you can go and play on a PlayStation or a PC and stuff. Tell the people a little about that.
As I say, I mean, I've sort of seen it. I've not tried it out with myself because obviously, I've got my own stuff at home. But obviously, a lot of people don't have these particular consoles or PC or even VR. It's taken away the ability for people who enjoy these game franchises to invest in certain editions of the games and collect collectible gaming items.
Yeah, because that was the other thing that you could pick up. There was branded merchandise. I mean, I went into a game inside the Trafford Centre. This was an actual game. This was many years ago now, and they had upstairs. They had that room where you could go and try out, like VR and stuff. Which, when you think of it, it's a great idea, especially with VR, because you gotta kind of try it to know what it is. Basically, seeing someone playing, it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, but you really need to try something like that. But one of the biggest things that players did, not just in a game itself, but in multiple other retailers, was queuing up 10, 11 o'clock at night in the freezing cold and waiting for that big game to release at midnight. I mean, we're of course talking of midnight launches. You yourself, you actually went to the GTA 5 midnight launch. I mean, that must have been quite an experience.
Oh yeah, it certainly was. I mean, I've been to like one or two midnight launches before, like where, for example, I've been to get the Xbox One, and yeah, it was busy, but in comparison to Grand Theft Auto 5, that was way busier. The place, obviously, where I got it from was, game itself, and it was in the full car park, like for all these other stores and that were there. It was just jam packed at that time of night as well, and I was like, is this everybody here just to pick this one game up? We were given a like raffle ticket number, so we obviously know what our spots in the lines would have been. There was people sat in the cars, and there were people beeping the horns. There was, I think, actually the police actually turned up and they actually taped off some areas. I still think it was worth going to, and it's obviously these stores that are closing, and it just feels like it's just getting stripped away, as you say, and it's not the same.
Well, one game that you probably won't be able to get a midnight launch of is unfortunately GTA 6. There's growing speculation that Rockstar Games might skip physical copies at launch and go digital only first. Now, keep in mind, Rockstar hasn't officially confirmed this yet, but multiple industry reports and leaks are pointing in the same direction. The rumour comes from insiders and reputable leakers who claim that Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar may decide to hold back physical disc copies on day one when GTA 6 launches later this year, hopefully. The main reason being floated around is leak prevention. Physical copies arriving in stores or into players' hands early can lead to story spoilers, nobody wants that, gameplay footage or data being shared online well before the official release, something Rockstar has dealt with already in the past. So under this digital-only strategies, players would buy or pre-download the game from PlayStation or Xbox on launch day, with physical editions potentially arriving several weeks or even months later, possibly into early 2027. Industry outlets are also tying this broader shift away from discs. Digital sales now make up the majority of AAA title purchases, and this kind of staggered release isn't unprecedented. However, it is important to stress that nothing is confirmed yet. Rockstar and Take-Two haven't made any official announcements about the physical release plans, and these rumours could change as we get closer to the launch. But if it does happen, this will be a huge change for one of the most anticipated video games of all time, a franchise that's almost always had boxed copies available since the very beginning. So whether you love physical discs, collect box editions, or you're all in on digital downloads, this is one story that's worth watching as we count down into November. So one of the biggest enjoyments about getting a brand new Grand Theft Auto is you've had, in this case, 13 years wait, but several years on average, and then you get that box in your hands, and you've got this really nice artwork on the front. Usually it's got like an emboss. I mean, GTA 4, if you got the collected or the special edition of that, it was a really nice sort of enclosed cardboard, and it was all embossed, and it was really nice. And then you open it up, and you've got all these images of the game and the description and everything, and you've got the disc, again, that disc image as well, really nice artwork. And then you've got the map and the poster. and finally we get to see how big the game is. Which is a lot of speculation about GTA 6's map size, so we might have to wait until we're quite far into the game to fully see the whole map. But yeah, I mean that to me was what made something like that really more enjoyable. One of the last things that gets revealed when it comes to GTA's is the map, and it's the biggest second character alongside the main characters and the story, and it would be a real shame if we don't get something. Hopefully they'll do what they did with Red Dead Redemption 2, where they released a collector's edition of sorts. It was almost like £200 or something. It came with a load of really nice physical products. I believe it came with some digital stuff as well for the game, but it didn't come with the game. Now, what they could do is, again, they could release some form of physical product, but instead of a disc, it's like a card with a digital download code. Hopefully that's what they do, and that would still prevent the leaks. It would ensure that everyone gets access to the game at the same time. Now, with the digital release side of things, we all know about, especially on Xbox, the New Zealand skip trip, shall we say. And if we know about it, Rockstar absolutely know about it. Now, it might not be possible for Xbox to change their architecture and structure and stuff to make that not happen. So the next best thing they could do is a release at the same time globally. So an example would be they would have a main time, which is probably going to be on the American midnight, just because that's where the headquarters is. So, say it releases at midnight US time, which would be probably 5 or 6 hours later for us, or, 6 a.m. in the morning, and then whatever. I think that, again, would be a really good strategy, because then instead of people, who can't do New Zealand or don't know how to do New Zealand, they're not suddenly getting tweets after tweets after tweets. Oh, this and that, and oh, did you see this in the game? And, just completely spoiling this game we've been waited so long for. The other problem with past issues for GTA 5, for example, even a digital aspect of the game, it got leaked several days, up to a week or two before it came out, and a lot of spoilers there were uploaded to the internet. So I can absolutely understand their concerns. They don't want the players getting the game spoiled for them. They're not fussed if you get the game early. They're fussed you get the game early and then you tell everyone about the game. That's what they're bothered about. Me and you are getting the game regardless, whether it's physical or digital. I mean, we were hoping to get the physical best end edition. Me and you want everything GTA 6 related. I mean, as much as we can get. How do you feel knowing that you might not be able to do a midnight launch, or you might not be able to get that physical copy in your hands day one?
I mean, I understand that if they do it, it's obviously to stop these leaks and stop the game being spoiled. At the same time, though, I feel like it's a bit of a tricky one, because there's obviously people that will want to buy the physical, but they don't want to buy the digital, because obviously, to buy them physical, and they'll be like, why would I need to buy digital when I'm going to buy physical? People who buy the digital will obviously be uploading it to the internet, and then the people who want the physical will end up, or someone will end up showing them it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of GTA news accounts on X alone that post just general garble, a lot of it AI and a lot of it just twisting something else someone else has said. They're going to want that clout. They're going to want their views and their likes and their reshares. They don't care that, they'd ruin a major plot point, and I mean, yeah, you could just not go on Twitter, right? But it's not just Twitter. It's going to be TikTok. It's going to be everywhere. This is the holy grail of video games, and you're telling me no one in the world is going to upload a second of that early if they can? Of course they are, and it would absolutely be a shame, and you'd have to go on a complete social media ban until the game comes out. And you'd miss quite a fair bit of stuff. A few days before the game would come out, there would be launch trailers, there would be articles, there would be reviews, and if you're going on a total media blast, you're going to miss it all. And I think you're still not restricting you're not saying to the players you can't get the game. You're just saying to the players, you want the physical, we'll release it a little bit later, but you can still get the digital download. It's still going to cost you the same. And again, it really does tie into head into a digital future. And this is the pros and the cons of it, isn't it? The pros are you've got this fast, convenient, just press download within an hour and playing the game. You've got the likes of these, reseller sites where you can get the game, for quite heavy discounts. I mean, you'd look at, say, something like The Last of Us Part 2 on the PlayStation Store. You're talking like 50, 60 quid with no offers going, right? And then you go to one of these reseller sites, and you see it for like 38, 40 quid. And you're like, it's the exact same, you're getting a digital code that you then put in on your PlayStation and you're downloading it direct from PlayStation. So, well, of course, none of this has been confirmed. This is all just rumours and speculation, with some legitimacy. This isn't just some random X account saying, oh, GTA 6, well, there's a bit of weight behind these rumours. We'll just have to wait and see what happens in the next couple of months. Hopefully in the next couple of months we should have quite a bit more GTA 6 news. In February we have Take-Two's earnings call, so again we have this every couple of months. Will we get information about GTA 6 is the question. Probably not the sort of information we as gamers are looking for. If you're a financial person, then you're probably going to get some good information. I think Take-Two certainly just like to leave that up to Rockstar. They leave all their marketing up to Rockstar. When Rockstar want to put out a tweet or a picture, they'll do it. Now, will they do it before this earnings call? It's possible, but don't hold your breath. We've not had any news since the delay. Unlike last time. Last time we had the delay in May, we got a huge load of information. Now, if you look at the marketing of previous games, you're probably looking at 6 months marketing campaign. So we're probably not going to see much news until May, which just so happens to be the next earnings call after February. So that's probably when we're going to see it. But again, let's just hope we get a bit of both. We get a physical edition of some sorts for the dedicated fans, the ones that want to open that and get the poster and the map, and then just a digital download to prevent leaks. Now, a game that has come out and has been extremely overhyped is, of course, Highguard. Now, the free-to-play PvP shooter, it was shown off as a big reveal at the end of the Game Awards last year in December. It came with massive expectations, but it's been met with very rocky reception. Highguard was revealed in the final world premiere slot of the show, largely because host Jeff Keighley personally championed the game and its team of veteran devs from titles like Apex Legends and Titanfall. When Highguard launched earlier this week on January 26 on PC and consoles, it drew nearly 97,000 Steam players at peak, showing strong initial interest, but that enthusiasm didn't last. Within a day, concurrent players had dropped sharply. Steam user reviews have been largely negative. Many players criticised the game's performance, balance and design. Comments described maps as too big for a simple 3v3 combat, gunplay as underwhelming, and the overall experience as boring or unfinished. Hopefully you don't get the same experience with these podcasts. One common sentiment was that it felt like familiar mechanics stitched together rather than something bold or fresh, with technical bugs and optimization issues. For example, one review on Steam called the gameplay boring, with maps that felt like running around with little to do. and criticised technical problems like crashes and missing features. Another Steam reviewer noted the game tries a lot of ideas but doesn't fully deliver on them, saying it feels like an unpolished hybrid of overshooters rather than its own identity. There has also been pretty vocal community backlash against Jeff Keighley, with some fans on social media accusing him of overselling the game based on its reveal and early hype, even going as far as saying they felt misled by the way Highguard was presented at the awards show. That isn't the entire story though. Some critics and players have pointed out genuine positives. Certain hands-on impressions from outlets like Metacritic's Critic Roundup and others noted that Highguard's core gameplay can feel satisfying. The match structure has strategic depth, and its blend of objective-driven PvP and character abilities shows real potential once the early issues are fixed. One critic described the combat as competent and fresh enough to pique interest even if it wasn't revolutionary. And even among the community, there were players, especially when playing with friends, who enjoy the game's mechanics and believes it could evolve into something much better with future updates. So the overall picture for Highguard is mixed to negative at launch. Player reviews trending downwards, a sense that the early hype didn't match the experience players got, and real issues around performance and design. But beneath that, there are elements that some players and critics appreciate, meaning that the Highguard story is far from over if the developers can iterate and respond to the feedback. Now, it's just another game in a long list of games that comes out way before it needs to, overhyped by big names, and then is just review bombed. It's not doing very well. I've not played it myself. It's not really the sort of title I'd be interested in. But the premise of, you've got Jeff Keighley, he's last couple of weeks, he's been on Twitter, now X, just essentially just constantly advertising, saying, good game, great game, and all this, can't wait for everyone to play it and all this, as if it was like the next big thing. And let's just say that's not aged very well for Jeff. He's got quite a few backlash comments. I think one of the biggest issues is it all started a couple of weeks, prior to the event itself. Jeff was kind of teasing this reveal, and someone made a comment. Well, a few people made a few comments, probably thinking it was Half-Life 3, the game that, other than GTA 6, is the one everyone's after. And the way he kind of responded, it was kind of like the NSA. We can neither confirm nor deny. So a lot of people kind of fell and read between the lines and thought, oh, actually, this might be Half-Life 3. And then, of course, it's Highguard. So that could explain a lot of the review bombing. And let's be fair, there are certainly people out there that don't even play the game for more than 10 minutes. Will be like, oh, it's absolute rubbish. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. When in reality, they've not even played it enough. However, there are people out there that have put time and a lot of patience, apparently, into playing the game and have still come out and said that it's not that great. Now, with games like this, in a similar style to Battlefield, Call of Duty and stuff like that, you got to think, well, firstly, there's so many other types of that game out there. How can we be innovative and how can we freshen up these ideas? And it just seems to fall way below the mark here. You've seen a little bit about it. What do you think about Highguard itself?
I mean, it's obviously it's different. Obviously, 3v3. It's not a lot, and considering it's meant to be on these quite considerable sized maps, I think these 3v3 it should be on a smaller base maps for these, especially for 3v3, unless they bring more players into it, which I guess it would make more sense. But obviously, whether they do that or not is another thing. But Yeah, I mean, there's all these other types of games. That's first-person shooters and that. Obviously, there's Halo, there's Call of Duty. It's just one of those things where they've tried it and it just seems to have not gone so well.
We'll definitely keep an eye out on it, and we will keep you updated if there's any more issues. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not saying don't play it. We're not saying do play it. Make your own mind up. There's a lot of rumours this week, but we have to cover them because when these rumours come from reputable sources that have got quite a bit of weight behind them, we like to cover them because it's gaming news. You, the people watching our podcast, like to be informed, and if you do enjoy our podcasts, a like and a follow would absolutely be appreciated. Let us know in the comments down below. Have you played Highguard? What's your impressions of it? Are you looking forward to GTA 6, where it comes out physically or digital? Let us know in the comments down below. In future episodes, we do refer back to previous comments, and you might be featured in our next or future episodes. Rumours are swirling that PlayStation is gearing up for a major state of play this February. According to multiple well-known insiders, including the often reliable Nate the Hate, Sony could be announcing a new broadcast early next month, possibly mid-February, marking the first big PlayStation showcase of the year. For those unfamiliar, State of Play is Sony's digital showcase series where the company reveals trailers, gameplay, release dates, and updates for its first-party titles and select third-party games hitting PlayStation platforms. It's been a regular part of the PlayStation calendar, and rumours right now suggest 26 won't skip that tradition. So, what can we expect? A big one on the list is Saros, House Marquee's upcoming action roguelike shooter heading to PS5 in spring this year. Fans are hopeful we'll get a deeper gameplay look as its launch draws closer. There's also strong chatter about potential first-party reveals, including a rumoured God of War spin-off title that might break from the series' traditional format. Speculation has even touched on announcements for Intergalactic, the much-anticipated Naughty Dog project that's been quiet for a while. And beyond that, players are hyped for a possible release details on upcoming sequels like Ghost Legends 2, surprises from third-party partners, and maybe even PlayStation Plus announcements tied into the event. Of course, none of this is official. Sony hasn't confirmed the date or content yet, so everything remains in the realm of rumours for now. But with past State of Play broadcasts delivering big news, from new gameplay trailers to release dates, the community is already buzzing about what might be unveiled and what could be one of Sony's biggest PlayStation showcases of the year. Now, there's a few big names there, isn't there, that is rumoured to be showed later next month. You've got God of War, you've got Intergalactic. You played God of War. Do you think this sequel spin-off thing could be good?
Obviously, I mean, I've played so much of the latest ones, and I've sort of heard how the last one, Ragnarok, ends, and if it's true from what's been said, then um, it could possibly work, but that remains to be seen because obviously how it went in the previous one, the Ragnarok. The thing is, I imagine it will have the main character Kratos in it, but if it doesn't, I don't know how it's gonna go. It just wouldn't be the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As long as they put the same soul and effort that they've done the God of War games. I mean, I played a little bit, not enough to have a full-on opinion, but you can certainly tell, the people behind them games, they've really done a good job with them. Another game that from a big studio, of course, that was recently revealed is Intergalactic. Got a little bit of hate, just because of the way the world is nowadays. But I think, again, when you see that name, Naughty Dog, you're going to get a great experience, regardless of, what direction the studio's going in or what direction the game's going in. We've not really seen much of it, So it could be the best place on a state of play to do, kind of proper deep dive, showing off, gameplay and, another trailer or something. I mean,
It didn't need the hate, the bashing that it got.
oh, absolutely. And earlier on, we were talking about, games being adapted to film. And of course, we know that The Last of Us was adapted to a TV show. And unfortunately, we received news today that Catherine O'Hara, who played Gale in season 2 of The Last of Us, sadly passed away. So, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with her friends and family. It's a shame we have to end on such a sad note, but unfortunately, we couldn't leave the show, especially talking about Naughty Dog and that, and not mention that. So yeah, guys, we hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have enjoyed the show and you want to see more content or check out some of our previous content, we're of course on many social medias at 2Men Gaming YT, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and X. We hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's a bye from me.
And it's a bye from me.